In this video, we're going to look at several problems. I've got three here, and we're going to go through all three of those, and then we're going to look at some more where there's no context. It's just taking a quadratic and using the quadratic formula to find the solutions. So on part A is equal to 1, B is equal to 14, C is equal to negative 51. So we're going to substitute. So negative 14, negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. And that's all divided by 2 times a, and 2 times a is 2 times 1, or 2. So we need to figure out what is under the radical, and that's going to be 14 squared, which is 196. Subtract 4 times 1 times negative 51, and we're going to get negative 204. And that's going to be negative 14 plus or minus the square root. So this is subtracting a negative. So what do we have inside the radical is 196 plus 204, and we're going to get 400. And that's all divided by 2. Well, the square root of 400, that's a perfect square, so we're going to get negative 14. And since we have a positive and a negative here, I'm going to have negative 14 plus 20 divided by 2, and I'm going to have x equal negative 14 minus 20 divided by 2. So when I simplify these, I'll find my two solutions. So negative 14 plus 20 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so 3, 0 is a solution. Negative 14 minus 20 is negative 34, and divide negative 34 by 2, and we get negative 17. So negative 17 comma 0, these are the solutions for this equation, for this quadratic. Let's look at part B. A is 1, B is 6, C is 8. So we're going to substitute x equal negative 6 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. And all that is divided by 2. So negative 6 plus or minus under the radical, I'm going to get 36 minus 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 8 is 32. And all divided by 2. So x equal negative 6 plus or minus 36 minus 32 is 4. So square root of 4 is a perfect square, so that will become 2. So I'm going to have negative 6 plus 2 divided by 2, and negative 6 minus 2 divided by 2. So negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4, and negative 4, so I'm going to get negative 4/6, comma 0, or negative 2/3. And negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 divided by 2 would be negative 4. So negative 4, comma 0. So those would be your solutions to the quadratic using quadratic formula. So I'm going to skip to example 12, and let's look at part A, where A is 2, B is 3, C is negative 20. So x equal negative 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 20. And that is all divided by 2 times a, so that would be 4. And x equal negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared, which is 9, minus, and here I've got 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times a negative 20 is a negative 160, all divided by 4. So I get negative 3 plus or minus the square root. This is going to be 9. Remember, subtract a negative becomes a positive, so that's going to be 9 plus 160, which will give us 169. And the square root of 169, because that's going to give us the square root of 169. That is a perfect square, so that's going to be plus and minus 13. So what I'm going to have is negative 3 plus 13 divided by 4, and x equal negative 3 minus what the square root of 169 would be is 13, all divided by 4. So we simplify, and negative 3 plus 13 is 10 fourths, which would be 5 halves, comma, 0. Simplifying 10 fourths. Here I'm going to get negative 16 divided by 4. So that's going to be negative 16 divided by positive 4. I'm going to get negative 4. So negative 4, comma, 0 would be the solution here. Now, if I want to find the vertex, and I'll just go to the next page here. If I want to find the vertex of part A, then that's going to be x equal negative b divided by 2 times a. So that'll be x equal negative 3 fourths. And what I will do is I'm going to substitute 3 fourths into the equation. And so that would look like this. And we can definitely use our calculator for this. But this is what it looks like as you're trying to figure out what is that output. What is that output when I substitute? So I'm going to have 2 times 75 hundredths squared plus 3, and that is negative 75 hundredths squared plus 3 times negative 75 hundredths minus 20, and I'm going to get negative 21 and 125 thousandths. So what does that mean? Well, that x was negative 3 fourths. I just changed it to a decimal, which was negative 75 hundredths. That is your axis of symmetry. And the vertex, the x part, is your axis of symmetry. When you substitute that in for x and hit enter to get a result, and you can do that on the calculator as well, that will produce your vertex. So let's look at part B, and let's solve using the quadratic formula, and we'll also find the vertex. So that's negative 6x squared plus 7x plus 3. So A is equal to 7, B is equal to negative 6, C is equal to 3. So x equal negative b, so I wrote that incorrectly. A is negative 6, B is 7, and C is 3. So x equal negative 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be 7 squared minus 4 times A times C. And we know this is going to open down because the A value is negative. And so we'll divide by 2 times A, so it'll be 2 times negative 6. So I'm going to have negative 7 plus or minus the square root. This is going to be 49. 7 squared is 49. Minus, now what am I going to get with the product here? Well, that's going to give me negative 24. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24 times a positive 3, and I'm going to get a negative 72, all divided by negative 12. So x is equal to negative 7 plus or minus, so this is subtracting a negative, so that's going to allow me to say 49 plus 72, and I get square root of 121, and the square root of 121 is 11. So I'm going to have x equal negative 7 plus 11 divided by negative 12, and x equal negative 7 minus 11 divided by negative 12. So negative 7 plus 11, I'm going to get 4 divided by negative 12. So x is equal to negative 1/3. There's one solution. And the other one would be negative 18 divided by negative 12. So that's going to be a positive, and both of these divisible by 6. So 9/2 would be the other solution. So there's the solution to this quadratic. And that quadratic was right here. And now what I'd like to do in the space below is find the axis of symmetry, A of S, and that's going to be x equal negative b, so negative 7 divided by 2 times negative 6. So the axis of symmetry would be, well, this will be negative, so that'll be 7/12. And remember, if I want the vertex, that's going to be substituting 7/12 here. So when I do that, I'm going to have negative 6, open parentheses, 7 divided by 12, close it, square it, plus 7 times open parentheses, 7 divided by 12, close it, plus 3. When I hit enter, I get about 5 4/10 approximately. And 7 divided by 12 is approximately 58/100ths, and this is approximately 5 4. So here's your vertex. And here's your axis of symmetry. So with this last example, I have, we're looking at part C, and I'm going to go ahead and list what A is. A is 4. B is 16. C is negative 65. So I'm using the equation here to find the vertex. So x equal negative 16 divided by 2 times 4. So that's negative 16 divided by 8. So x is equal to negative 2. Well, there's your axis of symmetry. So what's the vertex? Well, that would be substituting negative 2 into the equation, into this equation right here. So I'm going to have 4, open parentheses, negative 2 squared plus 16 times negative 2 minus 65, and I'm going to get negative 81. So my vertex is negative 2 comma negative 81 for this equation here. Now let's substitute to find the solutions. So x equal negative b, so negative 16 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 16 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 65. All divided by 2 times a, and 2 times a is 8. So let's simplify under the radicand. Well, 16 squared is 256. Subtract, and notice I wrote subtract and then open parentheses because I'm looking for what is this product. Well, that's going to be 16 times a negative 65, which is going to be negative 1,040. So negative 16 plus or minus, remember this subtract a negative allows me to add these two. So 256 plus 1,040 is going to be 1,296. And that should not be 80, that should be 8. And now I want to take the square root of 1,296 and I get 36. So that was a perfect square. So x equal negative 16 plus or minus the square root. I'm sorry, I already did that. I already took the square root and the answer was 36. So I'm going to look at two ways here. I've got x equal negative 16 plus 36 divided by 8. And x equal negative 16 minus 36 divided by 8. So negative 16 plus 36 is 20, and 20 divided by 8. Well, I can simplify both by 4, divide both by 4, so I'm going to get 5 halves. So there's one solution. And here I get negative 16 minus 36, and I get negative 52 divided by 8. And I should be able to divide both by 4. So I'm going to get negative 13 halves. There's my solution for part C, which was 4x squared plus 16x minus 65. The vertex was negative 2, negative 81, and the solutions were 5 halves, comma 0, and negative 13 halves, comma 0.